For almost 80 years, the USS Albacore, a really dangerous submarine from World War II, stayed hidden off the coast of Hokkaido. This submarine, a Gato-class one, was known for hunting Japanese warships. People said it sank the important aircraft carrier Taiho and had 11 successful patrols. But in 1944, the Albacore just disappeared. The Navy made announcements, but the families of the crew and the Navy itself didn't get any real answers. Then, after 79 years, sonar found the Albacore's rusty hull on the bottom of the ocean. This discovery brought back a lot of questions. What caused this famous submarine to sink? And how did people miss its location for so long? To find out the real story, a story of loss, legacy, and finding something that was lost, we need to go back to the start. On April 21, 1941, at the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut, workers started building a new Gato-class submarine. They called it hull number SS-218. Only 10 months later, on February 17, 1942, the submarine was launched and named USS Albacore. By June 1, 1942, it was ready for action, with Lieutenant Commander Richard C. Lake in charge. The Albacore was 311 feet long from front to back. It was a bit over 27 feet wide and about 17 feet deep. Below the waterline, it had 4 diesel engines that powered electric generators, which then turned 2 propeller shafts. On the surface, it could travel at 21 knots, which was faster than most merchant ships. When underwater, it could move quietly at 9 knots, powered by batteries and almost invisible. The Albacore had 10 torpedo tubes, 6 in the front and 4 in the back. Each tube could launch a 21-inch torpedo. It also had a 3-inch deck gun and anti-aircraft guns for fighting on the surface. Inside, 85 men lived and worked in a place made of steel and machines. There were bunks stacked 3 high, narrow hallways, and the constant sound of motors. The air smelled like diesel and sweat. Patrols could last as long as 75 days, with the crew taking turns on watch, doing drills, and enjoying small things like letters from home. With a range of 11,000 nautical miles at 10 knots, the Albacore could travel far across the Pacific, hunting for weeks. From the moment it set sail, its design meant it could go far, take a lot of damage, and be deadly. The Albacore became famous because of its 11 war patrols. Each one was a test of courage and skill in enemy territory. Its record is one of the best, with 9 battle stars for presidential unit citations, and at least 10 enemy ships confirmed sunk. Every patrol was dangerous. Depth charges, patrol planes, and the chance of mechanical problems always threatened the crew. But their skill and bravery made the Albacore a name that people respected and feared in the Pacific. The crew's biggest success happened on June 19, 1944, during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. In one well-planned attack, the Albacore fired torpedoes at the Japanese carrier Taiho, which was the flagship of Admiral Ozawa's mobile fleet. One torpedo hit, setting off aviation fuel and causing the pride of the Imperial Navy to sink. The loss of the Taiho was a huge blow. It was the first time an American submarine had destroyed a Japanese fleet carrier. Because of this victory, the men of the Albacore received the Navy Cross and the thanks of a country at war. From the cramped torpedo rooms to the conning tower, everyone on board knew the risks. Their victories were measured in silence and steel. Each patrol took them further into danger as the war changed. With each success, the stakes got higher. The Albacore had become both the hunter and the hunted. Its reputation was set in the cold depths of the Pacific. On October 24, 1944, the Albacore left Midway Harbor, ready for its last patrol in the cold waters off Hokkaido. The orders were to patrol the Tsugaru Strait, a narrow passage between Honshu and Hokkaido, where enemy ships were moving through fog and shadow. The crew studied maps that showed danger zones, each one a warning in red ink. Japanese minefields, newly placed and poorly mapped, covered the area. Intelligence briefings warned of contact mines that floated just below the surface, their steel shells full of explosives that could rip open a submarine's hull. The Albacore's assigned area was close to the Oshima Peninsula, which the Navy considered very dangerous. The patrol orders didn't allow for much room to move around. The strait was a key point, and Japanese ships were still getting through, protected by patrol boats and the hidden threat of mines. The boat's captain, Lieutenant Commander Hugh R. Rimmer, looked at the latest intercepted messages. Enemy mine layers had been active in the area since September, and new minefields could appear at any time. Below deck, sailors practiced emergency drills, checked their escape gear, and went over what to do in case of flooding or fire. The air became tense as the temperature dropped, and condensation formed on the walls. Everyone knew that one mistake could mean disaster. The Albacore's patrol route would take it through known danger areas, but the boundaries were always changing. In those waters, the line between hunter and hunted was unclear, and there was no room for error. At 10 a.m. on November 7, 1944, Japanese patrol boats near the Oshima Peninsula heard a loud underwater explosion. Soon after, a thick oil slick spread across the waves, followed by pieces of cork and painted wood floating to the surface. There was no sign of torpedoes or a surface battle, just the sudden silence that comes after a disaster at sea. Wartime logs from the patrol boats described it simply: an explosion, then debris, then nothing. The crews searched the area for survivors or enemy submarines, but the water didn't give up any answers. In Washington, the Navy studied intercepted reports and maps. The Albacore's last message had placed it near those mined waters, but there were no further communications. Intelligence officers compared the timing and location of the explosion with the submarine's orders and the known minefields off Hokkaido. The evidence pointed to one thing: the Albacore had disappeared in an instant, destroyed by a mine laid to protect the Tsugaru Strait. There was no distress call, no final message, just a hole in the hull and 85 lives lost in a moment. On December 21, 1944, the Navy declared the Albacore and its crew lost. Telegrams were sent to families across the country, each one with the same sad message of loss and uncertainty. For those families, the silence of the war continued. There was no grave, no wreck, just the memory of a submarine that had sailed into darkness and never returned. On May 25, 2022, a research ship from the University of Tokyo searched the seabed east of Hakodate, using wartime records and years of guesses to guide them. Dr. Tamaki Yura and his team mapped a grid across the suspected minefield, using sonar to scan every part of the seabed. They saw echoes, ridges, silt beds, and then, finally, a long, cylindrical shape lying 237 meters down. The thing was about 50 meters long, and its shape was clearly that of a submarine. Side-scan sonar made the shape clearer, showing a conning tower and what looked like torpedo tubes. Strong currents and marine growth made the survey hard, so they had to make several passes to confirm the size and position of the object. In the control room, the data came together to form a likely match: a Gato-class submarine resting silently on the seabed. For the first time in 78 years, the searchers had found something worth investigating. Closer inspection confirmed what the sonar had suggested. High-definition images from a remote-operated vehicle showed a slender mast, part of the submarine's late-war radar, sticking out. This was a feature that only the Albacore had at the end of the war. A row of vent holes on the structure matched drawings from 1944. Missing steel plates, which had been removed before the submarine's final patrol, lined up with known changes made to the Albacore. Every detail, from the periscope setup to the proportions of the hull, matched blueprints in Navy archives. Analysts at the Naval History and Heritage Command compared the new images with wartime photos and construction records. On February 16, 2023, the NHC made its official announcement. The wreck off Hokkaido was definitely the USS Albacore. After 79 years, the name that had been lost in the Pacific had been found, thanks to evidence that even the currents couldn't erase. On that day, the U.S. Navy officially confirmed that the wreck discovered off Hokkaido was the USS Albacore. That ended a 79-year search that had started after the submarine disappeared on November 7, 1944. The Albacore had been on 11 war patrols and had played a big part in the Pacific War, including sinking the Japanese carrier Taiho. The identification was based on the ROV images, the unique features of the hull, and documents from the archives. But the exact details of the Albacore's final moments, whether it was a mine or something else that caused the explosion, are still unknown. Some wartime records are incomplete. The discovery answers questions for families and historians and shows how new technology can help solve mysteries that are decades old. The service and sacrifice of the USS Albacore are now remembered not only in records, but also on the ocean floor. It's a reminder of the crew and of the ongoing effort to find those lost at sea.